All right. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
All right. So how's everything on your end? How is the weather? How is work overall?
Well, this is a really busy week for us here. So we have a lot of campaigns launching. So
Great.
just kind of gearing up for all of that. And then the weather-wise, it has been crazy. We were having, spring, summer type weather, and then it snowed this weekend.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's
That's
it's been a
interesting.
I know it's been such a strange time for the weather, but so it's really cold today, but hopefully it'll warm up later this week.
Oh, nice. I think you guys look forward to the summer more, don't you?
Yes, it depends. It depends. Where we live in Virginia, we actually have four very distinct seasons.
Hmm.
So we get to experience all of those. So by the time one is wrapping up, I feel ready for the next one.
Yes. Okay. So it's the same
Yes.
for us as well. Great. All right.
Yes.
So the topic we have today is basically the tech industry from the eyes of a woman, because
Yes.
even though it's 2022, I feel that there's very few women in this industry, and the ones that we have, I think the men in the industry look at them like they're a stranger in the boys' club. So I
Yes.
thought, why not, talk about how the experience has been for you and overall for maybe the women who are working with you as well.
Sure.
So the first thing I wanted to ask was, of course, what made you opt for this industry, or how did you decide that you wanted to be a part of the tech industry?
So it's interesting because I actually did not start out wanting to be in the tech industry. I started out on more of the communication side of things, project management side of things, and became involved in marketing. And I work and have worked for many years now with a marketing agency. And
Hmm.
so technology and the tech industry sort of is a partner in terms of marketing. These days you
Yes.
can't do anything well in marketing without data. We also build websites at our agency, and so tech comes into play big time there. We do a lot of website troubleshooting and things like
Hmm.
that. So it was less about me seeking out the tech industry. It sort of found me before I found it.
Yeah.
And then I just grew in that part of my career. So
Hmm.
I sort of just happened to find myself in the tech industry versus that's, going to school for that right out
Yeah.
of the gate.
Yes, I think it's sort of technology now is finding everyone. I mean, no matter
Yes,
what business you're running or what job you're doing, you have got to be, a certain level of tech savvy to be able to excel in things. So,
absolutely.
and overall, do you think over the past few years, because like I said before, I mean, this industry is not very, I wouldn't even say welcoming towards women, but women don't really opt for it. They don't go for it. But yes, in the past few months and years, I've also, met a lot of women who are now working towards being a part of the tech industry. I've seen women in project management, development, design as well. So how do you think the trends have changed for women in this industry?
Yes, it's interesting. Just like you said, I think even though it's 2022, there are still a lot of areas where women have not completely infiltrated the industry. And I will say that, there are trends, over the past decade or so where there have been opportunities created specifically for women or for young girls to try their hand at a tech industry. What I would really like to see is, us get to a point where we're it's almost not special to have a woman in the tech industry, that we're just more so talking about people in the industry and what their accomplishments and achievements are. And being a woman in the industry isn't even sort of a notable thing because there are so many of us
Yes.
in there.
Yes.
But I have definitely seen movement in terms of opportunity and sort of how tech is even marketed
Hmm.
to a potential job pool. And so that's very, very encouraging. And I think that even goes beyond just looking at it as an opportunity for women, but just people in general that may not find or may not think that they are very tech savvy. Until you sort of dive into it a little bit, I'm not sure that you can just make that blanket statement as a woman or just as a person. It's something you really have to try to and figure
Yes.
out if it's something you're interested in or not.
Sure. Exactly. So how do you think we can, sort of maintain or improve the gender balance in, I think, not just the tech industry overall? How do you think we can, have more women in leadership roles, and in fact, yes, have more women in all the industries where there aren't a lot of women right now?
Yes. Well, I'm a firm believer in putting your efforts towards the things that you can control. So as a woman looking at an industry, we talk a lot about, is there opportunity or is there bias and these types of things. Some of that and a lot of that we can't necessarily control. But what we can control is whether or not we're going to have the courage and the determination to start
Yes, of
and
course.
to, start that class at university or do that certification, and so I think it really starts there as viewing it as a personal empowerment type of thing. There's always going to be bias. There's always going to be probably some barriers, or at least for the foreseeable future. But what you can control is the effort and your courage to start. And
Yes.
so that's what I would say to women is, yes, we face a lot of challenges, but we also can be empowered if we take ownership of, you know, sort of taking ourselves to the next level in terms of education and experience and things like that. And even when you show up at the job, you may be the only woman there, but
Yes.
you can be the first one there every day. You can be the one that hits all your deadlines. You can be the one that, keeps getting those certifications. Nobody can take that part away from you. So
Hmm.
focus on the things that no one can take away from you, and I think that's really the best place to start.
Yeah, that's actually great advice. I'm also gonna make sure. I also agree with this. I think you need to be confident about yourself before you're doing
Yes.
anything, or before you're even, I mean, running the smallest errand at home. You first need to, of course, be confident about what you're capable of and what you're doing. So,
Yes.
like
Well, and
you,
go
yes.
ahead.
No, no, please
Well,
continue.
I was going to say, if we focus on how do we change the system at large, and that's the only thing we're focused on, who knows how long we're going to have to wait until that happens, right? So while we're working on those things, because we do want to work on those things
Hmm.
too, we can still be taking steps to insert ourselves into these industries where we might not have as much representation.
Yes, of course. You're right. Okay. So like you were speaking about challenges. So what kind of challenges did you face through your, career path till you got here? The, was there anything that, you had to fight with or fight for, or even just the tiniest bit of challenges that you had to face?
Yes, so I think probably a lot of women can relate to this, but in many instances, a woman, especially if she's a leader, it can be seen very differently than a man that is a leader, right? So
Yes.
if a man is leading something, then he's assertive. if a woman is leading something, she can be labeled negatively, right? And
Yes.
so, again, going back to that sort of personal responsibility mindset of regardless of what people may say, my goal is to be the best leader that I can be
Hmm.
and control the things that I can control in terms of my work ethic and, the work that I produce and my consistency, regardless of what they're going to say, because you're going to always have people that are going to possibly have a negative viewpoint of you simply because you're a woman in an industry that's dominated by men.
Exactly. Yes.
And, again, while we're working on those things, we also want to be working on the things that we can control with that.
Of
So I
course.
think, women have to, I think sometimes what happens is that women enter those situations and they feel intimidated.
Hmm.
But I am also a firm believer that people can't intimidate you unless you let them. They can
Hmm.
try, but that does not mean that you have to absorb that. So I
Yes.
think women have to sort of go in with a mindset of maybe doing the opposite in some instances of what we've been taught to do, which is, kind of be in the shadows and kind of play
Yes.
small. I think, again, that starts with us. We have to have the mindset of like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be professional. I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to be all
Yes.
of those things, but you're not going to intimidate me out of the room.
Of course.
Um, yeah. So I think those are some challenges women face. Um, I think also just feeling comfortable, I think maybe stepping into an industry that's not as well known or understood. It's so nice, like just like with this conversation where, you have other women to bounce ideas off of and relate to.
Yes.
And so if you're walking into the class and you're the only woman there, that can feel kind of uncomfortable maybe. But again, own your spot in that
Yeah.
room.
Yes.
Our brain power doesn't have a gender, right? Like
Yes.
your brain power is what it is. And, people will recognize you as a woman and that's going to be the case and that's fine. But be careful of what you allow yourself to internalize by other
Yes.
people in the industry that might not have your best interest at heart.
Yes. I mean, don't you think I feel that way that I mean, it's easier for a man, but for women, I feel like there is a very thin line between being respectful and assertive. I mean, if
Yes.
you're going to say something, even if you're just trying to be firm about it, people will take that as a disrespect to them. However, if you keep a man in your place, somehow he's allowed to shout and still, sound firm, not aggressive.
Sure.
So do you
Yes.
agree with that?
I do. I think, and not in every instance, but as a whole, I do think that we have this perception of men being assertive and women, if what they're doing is being assertive, that can be viewed negatively, that she's,
Yes.
being too overbearing or whatever the case may be. And I think that is built on a long line of kind of stereotypes and
Mm.
culture and that, sort of thing. I read a statistic recently that said that men, like 60% of men would apply for a job that they are not 100% qualified for.
Yes.
60%. And the percent of women that
Wow.
would do that is very minuscule. So I think,
Mm.
in some ways, again, women have to take responsibility for themselves to say, hey, I am going to go for those opportunities that might be a little bit beyond my reach, but
Mm.
I know that I'm capable. I think that belief in our capability also comes from trying things, trying new things, trying hard things, working through those things. And that's all, you have a lot of that within your control. So if you start off and you're like, you know what, I want to learn to code, you take your first coding
Mm.
class and you get through that, that's a drop in the bucket of your confidence.
Yes. It is.
And it's up to us to sort of build that. Nobody's just going to hand that to you.
Yes.
But yes, I definitely agree that there are ways that women are viewed differently in terms of leadership style um, than men. And hopefully that will continue to even out as more women are in
Come into
leadership
this, yes.
positions. Mhm.
Yes, of
And the
course.
other thing too, yeah, go ahead.
Nothing I said, yes, I completely
Oh,
agree with you.
yes. And I think the other thing also to keep in mind is, I think women, we're sort of taught like, oh, well, you always need to be nice. You need to be,
True.
nice and take everything into account. And, there's a lot that we're expected to do as like nurturers and things like that. And I think, there are some benefits to that. But at the end of the day, if you can ask yourself, hey, was my intention with my leadership style, was I respectful of everybody? Did I have people's best interests at heart, even if I had to be firm? If you can be at peace with that within yourself, then you don't really have anything to worry about, regardless of
Yes,
what other people might be saying.
true, true. I think you need to, of course, there a certain level of confidence does come through other people, but I think the first step is to actually believe in yourself and, give it your best, especially being a
Yes.
woman, because there's very few people believing in us. I think believing in ourselves is very important. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, Brooke, coming down to my last question, there's so many girls out there who look up to women like you and, other successful women. Is there any piece of advice or anything you would, no problem.
I'm so sorry.
No
I have
problem
my
at all.
dog at work.
It's okay.
Hold on one second.
No worries.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem at all. Okay, so yeah, I was saying, so there's of course so many girls out there who look up to people like you, who look up to women who are, out there working, they're successful. So is there any piece of advice that you would want to give to those people? Is there any experience that you would want to share with them that could maybe, help them through their professional journey in the future?
Sure. That I think that a lot of times we are aware of the limits that other people put on us, but we have to be equally aware of the limits that we're putting on ourselves. So that's, again, one place that I would start if I were talking with a young lady to say, hey, like you're going to face some challenges because you're a woman. That's just the nature of things at this point in time. And again, while we're working on all of that, that doesn't have to be a limitation on what you can do. Be the person who is the first female, at the tech company. Be the first woman that takes that class or does that certification. Don't let other people's viewpoint dictate what you do. You will know 100% of the time what's going to happen if you don't take the chance. You
Yes.
know that outcome. You have no idea what doors could be unlocked if you take those steps forward. And you don't
True.
have to know all the big picture. Like when I started my career, I sort of had one thing in mind. And then as I went along, doors opened or more of the path was revealed. Figure out something that you're passionate about or have an interest in. Try that out. And let the path kind of reveal itself from there. Don't put limitations on yourself. If every other person you encounter wants to do that, that's on them. But within yourself, you can figure out what limitations you're going to put on yourself. And then the other kind of practical advice that I would share that helped me so much is that if you have a specific job in mind that you think you'd like to do, let's say it's coding or being a developer or whatnot, shadow a person that's actually doing that. Like ask someone, hey, can I come and shadow you for the day at your job? So that you can get a real sense of what that is
Yes.
like in a
Yes.
real world scenario, because you learn a lot of things in school and it's super valuable. But what it's like as a career day to day can be very different. So,
Yes.
give yourself an opportunity to see that from a practical standpoint.
Yeah. Mini internships.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually,
Do all
yes,
the
you're
internships you
right.
can.
I mean, I studied everything that I'm doing right now, but it's so different than what I studied. Professional life is, completely different. So I
Yes,
think it's more
absolutely.
about finding solutions than following, what's in the book or, what the rules are. You're always just trying to figure out the quickest and the best possible solution for whatever you're doing.
Yes, I think at school, what we learn is it's like sort of very black and white. It's sort of like it's this or it's this, but in the real
Yes.
world, things are very gray.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of have a lot of like critical thinking, problem solving skills to work in that realm. The other thing that I would say too is that you know, being a woman in a male dominated industry can feel very isolating, but
Hmm.
do yourself a favor and like reach out to other women. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a woman that is in your same industry, although that would be wonderful. But, just other women that might be working in industries that are male dominated. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We don't have to be sort of an island unto ourselves.
Hmm.
Having a network of people that you can just talk to or vent to or whatnot is a great
Very
thing to
important.
do for
Yes.
yourself.
Yes,
Mhm.
I think it's very important. And I don't think your friends from your personal life can, sort of understand your work problems. So it's
Right.
always, I think you should always have a set of work friends who you went to about work and then a set
Yes.
of personal life friends who you can vent to about things that you have going on in your personal life. So yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
great advice. Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
I think that does pretty much wrap up most of our conversation.
Okay.
It was great speaking to you, and I really
Thank you.
hope that all the women watching this podcast, they get some sort of motivation and empowerment through our conversation. And
Thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you for taking out the time. I know you're very, very busy. So I feel honored, honestly.
Oh, well, thank you so much for inviting
Thank
me. I think it's a great thing that you're doing with the podcast. So I appreciate being invited.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.